controversial Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar. Ms. Omar has said some of the most partisan and frankly incorrect statements regarding Kashmir, regarding the NRC here in India, the Modi government. She said that there is a genocide happening in Kashmir post the abrogation of Article 370. She visited Pakistan-occupied Kashmir back in 2022 and praised the administration there in POK. Now, Ilhan Omar can have whatever politics she wants to have domestically in America. But when she's talking about Kashmir, when she's talking about NRC, these are internal matters of India. And she has a position which is frankly contrarian and contrary to the national interest of India. Why would the leader of opposition of the Indian Parliament, Rahul Gandhi, meet with such an open anti-India baiter like Ilhan Omar? And that too, you have the Kashmir elections coming up in the next few weeks. It's the first democratic election you're seeing in Kashmir in 7 years. It is right around the corner. It's going to come up in the next few weeks. And the leader of the opposition, the leader of the single largest opposition party in the country, is seen in the company of such an anti-India baiter. But first, the story.
India has an employment problem. But there are many countries in the world that don't really have an employment problem. China certainly doesn't have an employment problem.
The fight is about whether he, as a Sikh, is going to be allowed to wear his turban in India. Or he, as a Sikh, is going to be allowed to wear a kada in India. Or he, as a Sikh, is going to be able to go to Gurdwara. That's what the fight is about.
जो महिला करे मुस्लिम भाई बहन सुरक्षित नहीं है, उनके साथ जब राहुल गांधी दिखते हैं तो देश का ही नहीं हर देशवासी का भी अपमान करते हैं।
भारत के इतिहास के पहले नेता प्रतिपक्ष बन चुके हैं जिनका नाम एक समय पर पाकिस्तान ने संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघ में भारत विरोधी अपने वक्तव्य में प्रयोग किया था।
अमेरिका को, स्टेट डिपार्टमेंट को चिट्ठी लिखें कि जिस महिला का ये नाम ले रहे हैं इल्हाम, उनको बाहर कर दें। वो वहाँ की सांसद हैं, समझ लीजिए। सांसद और अकेले नहीं मिले, सब सांसदों के साथ मिले।
Now, these meetings do not take place in isolation. They don't simply happen out of the blue. These meetings, particularly with foreign representatives, are planned very much in advance. So, either Mr. Gandhi himself or his team certainly was aware of Ilhan Omar being part of that congressional delegation. They surely were apprised of Ilhan Omar's anti-India record. Let's just bring you up to speed with what she has said, the controversial and sometimes factually inaccurate things that she has said about India in the recent past. In 2019, she criticized the National Register of Citizens in Assam, calling it a part of Prime Minister Modi's Hindu nationalist project. In 2019, she also opposed the abrogation of Article 370, calling it a crackdown on the rights of Kashmiris. It's a bit like a politician here in India talking about the act in the United States which allows the right of return for Jews. No politician in India has a skin in that game. Similarly, Ilhan Omar has no skin in whether 370 is on the statutory books or no. 2022, and this is the most controversial part in my view, she visited Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and she promised to mainstream India's human rights violations in the Indian side of Kashmir. She had nothing to say about the human rights violations in POK. In fact, she went to the extent of praising the local administration there in POK. And this is the blatant double standards that I'm worried about. In 22, she also pushed a resolution in the United States Congress accusing India of violating religious freedom. In fact, she wanted to classify India as a country of particular concern. And then last year, she accused the Modi government of right-wing authoritarianism after a crackdown on separatism in Punjab. Also that same year, she criticized India for quadrupling trade with Russia since the invasion of Ukraine. Also in 2023, when the Prime Minister went there for the state visit, The state visit was at the invitation of the President of the United States. It is the state of the United States which has invited Prime Minister Modi for a visit, and Ilhan Omar boycotted the Prime Minister's address to the US Congress. But let's keep it straight and simple. Has Rahul Gandhi scored a self-goal by being seen in the company of, among others, Ilhan Omar, a controversial American congresswoman who has said blatantly wrong and frankly obnoxious things about India and Kashmir? Let me now bring in our guest. Pradeep Bhandari is national spokesperson of the BJP here in our studios. Charan Singh Sapra is national spokesperson of the Congress Party. Kamal Sibal is former foreign secretary to the government of India. Sanjeev Srivastav, senior journalist, also joining us. Charan Singh Sapra, I just outlined the kind of stuff that Ilhan Omar has said about India and Kashmir. She's also, by the way, backed the Canadian government's probe into the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. She boycotted Mr. Modi's address, joint address to both houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, at the state visit, at the invitation of the state of the United States. She moved a resolution to designate India as a country of particular concern. All of these, doesn't this not add up to her being an open anti-India beta? And if that's the case, then why was Mr. Gandhi sharing a photograph with her? Why was he sharing an audience with her? Why was she there at all in the first place? I believe this meeting was organized by the Overseas Professionals Congress, headed, of course, by Mr. Petroda. But do they not do any background checks of who's invited to these meetings?
See, Zaka, let me make it clear in first place that this meeting was not a secret meeting, and this was a group meeting. This was a scheduled meeting, and it was a meeting in which all the policy makers or the intellectuals or the politicians of United States were present. Ilhan Omar, one of them, was there, and she's also close, she's from the political system of United States, and she's also close to Kamala Harris. She was a part of the delegation. And number two, let me tell you that BJP is, upset or disturbed by the kind of, publicity and TRP Shri Rahul Gandhi's visit is getting. That's why they are picking up flukes every day just to add on to the smear campaign which they want to launch against Rahul Gandhi, but this is not going to work. Let me
separate two issues, please. Okay, I'll get to the Rahul Gandhi's visit getting so much prime time coverage in newspaper headlines, etc. in 1 second. But look, okay, I take half your point where you're saying it was a delegation. She was not the only one. This was not a one-on-one meeting. There were other US congressmen and women. Ro Khanna was there. He's again of Indian origin. Shri Thanedar was there. He's also of Indian origin. All from the Democratic Party. But none of them have said the kind of stuff that Ilhan Omar has said. Ilhan Omar is neither of Indian origin, so there's no reason why she should be part of it. She's not part of the India caucus. And she has said some of the most disparaging things about India and about Kashmir. Why would Rahul Gandhi or whoever organized this for Mr. Gandhi invite Ilhan Omar as part of the delegation?
See, Zaka, meeting somebody does not mean that we are endorsing their views. We are not endorsing the views of Ilhan Omar, number one. Number two, if the Indian government has some reservations, if they have some serious concerns, they can summon the ambassador in Delhi and they can file their complaints, whatever they want to file. So it is very clear. Basically, BJP has an issue with Ilhan Omar because she boycotted Narendra Modi's visit. And I can also ask questions why Narendra Modi met Justin Trudeau even after knowing his views on Khalistan and the Sikh separatism. I can also ask question why Narendra Modi met Xi Jinping when 20 soldiers were killed in Galwan. Even after that, Prime Minister met
let me
Xi Jinping.
put that to
why
Pradeep
Prime Minister
Bhandari.
Nawaz Sharif was
why
called
was
for
Prime
the
Minister
first
Modi
swearing-in
meeting Nawaz
ceremony?
Sharif and Xi Jinping and Justin Trudeau? I mean, tomorrow, hypothetically speaking, Pradeep, if let's say Kamala Harris wins the US election and she offers to make Ilhan Omar or makes Ilhan Omar a member of her cabinet, will the government of India and ministers of the government of India stop meeting her?
So Zaka, first of all, just for your viewers, Ilhan Omar right now, just to make it very clear, had brought in an anti-India resolution in the House of Representatives. So we are talking about an individual who was funded by the Pakistan to go to POK, which was a threat to, and that act was considered as an act against our sovereignty of India. This is not what I am saying. On 21st April 2022, the official stand of the Indian government, this is ANI, where the MEA spokesperson has said, and I quote, she visited a part of JNK currently illegally occupied by Pakistan. If such a politician wishes to practice a narrow-minded politics at home, that may be her business, but violating our territorial integrity in its pursuit makes this ours condemnable. So we had openly, publicly said that this individual believes in an independent Jammu and Kashmir. She does not believe in the Constitution of India. Knowing this, if Mr. Rahul Gandhi meets this individual and has not still divulged what was discussed between them, what was it, foreign affairs, what was discussed, then we definitely have a charge that is Rahul Gandhi talking to anti-India elements. And if this is not in isolation, what has Sikh for Justice, a banned Khalistani terror outfit, said in its letter September 10, 2024? Gurpan Singh Pannu, who is a terrorist, who is being banned under who has charged under UAPA, he says that he endorses the view of Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Now you have a banned terror outfit endorsing the view of Rahul Gandhi. You have an anti-India, pro-Pakistan senator backing Rahul Gandhi. With this, I charge, is there a larger conspiracy of Pakistan at play, the K2 conspiracy which Mr. RP Singh has spoke about?
Sabra Saab, you know, the thing is that all of this is originating from Rahul Gandhi's comments saying Sikhs in India are under threat, they don't know if they can go to a Gurdwara, they don't know if they can wear their kada, they don't know if they can wear their pagdi. I'm asking you as a Congress spokesperson, and also I'm asking you as a proud Sikh, are you afraid in this country, Sabra Saab? Are you afraid of going to a Gurdwara? Are you afraid of wearing your kada? I mean, who is stopping you from doing these things?
Let me first answer the part one of the BJP spokesperson, the question which he has asked. I also would like to put up questions. Why Nawaz Sharif was invited for the first swearing-in ceremony when the Prime Minister Narendra Modi was knowing that 527 soldiers were martyred in Kargil war? Why did he invite? Why the ISI was given a red carpet welcome in Pathankot Air Base, even after knowing that they are the main culprits and for the intrusion into India? So this is part one. Now, as far as the Sikh issue is concerned, let me tell you, Zaka, you must have also heard the entire speech of Shri Rahul Gandhi. It was a 20-25 minute speech, out of which in 20 seconds, when he was talking about how the BJP and RSS are trying to forcibly impose their agenda on various religions or on various languages. He quoted Tamil Nadu, he quoted Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Maharashtra, so many states he has quoted. And he was basically trying to say that the religious minority is under fear. And then there was a Sikh gentleman in front, Mr. Balinder Singh, whom he just asked, and he said, he quoted, like the other minorities are suffering, tomorrow the Sikhs might also suffer. They might also fear wearing a turban or wearing a kada.
No, Sabra Saab, this Balinder Singh that you are referring to, Sabra Saab, this Balinder Singh you are referring to has put out a long Facebook post, right after meeting Rahul Gandhi and after this incident, and he has said this whole thing is bunkum. I am a Sikh and I feel not threatened at all in India. Okay, so let me go to Kanwal Sibal and of course Sanjeev Srivastava is also patiently waiting. Kanwal Sibal, you know, there is a protocol, as I understand, especially because Mr. Rahul Gandhi is the leader of the opposition now. He's not just an ordinary politician. He's not just heading a political party. He's the leader of the opposition. When he goes and who he meets, especially abroad, should it not be vetted in some form by the government or the MEA? And there is a precedent where, for example, if the person concerned is not comfortable with one of the guests or does not want to be seen with one of the guests, you can ask for that person not to be part of the delegation. I remember when Mr. Jaishankar became foreign minister and went to the United States, I think it was one of his first visits, Pramila Jayapal, who's again a congresswoman of Indian origin but has said some extremely problematic things about India, he said, I'm not going to join the meeting if she's part of the meeting, and then eventually she had to sit out of that meeting. So there's fair precedent, there's very fairly recent precedent for this to have happened.
Look, a couple of things. Firstly, that whether it's the leader of the opposition or any opposition leader, he is free to make his own arrangements and his own program. He doesn't need any permission from the government of India or any endorsement from them in any way about the people he's going to meet. This was organized by Sam Pitroda and the Congress Overseas Organization. That is one. If a leader of the opposition or an opposition leader wants to get the support of the embassy, it is up to him to do so. There is absolutely no obligation. You have to use your own common sense and your own political awareness where you think that it would be best if we kept the official channels informed, the embassy informed of what our program is. But it's entirely voluntary. Number two, it is established protocol. Just believe me that when such meetings are organized, in advance, the list is given to the person concerned, in this case, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, with brief biodatas of everyone.
Absolutely.
So that he knows who is he talking to. He knows what their antecedents are. He shouldn't be surprised suddenly by having someone which may be awkward in any potential way.
Okay.
Or otherwise, just to be able to engage them, see what their interests are, what their views are, so that you can address them. So he knew that she was there. He would know what her background is, but he nevertheless decided to go ahead. But assuming that after this furore got created, he felt that this was probably a wrong thing to do, he could easily distance himself by saying that she was there, yes, but there is nothing that she said which I did not counter or address or put her on the right track or agreed with her in any way in terms of whatever she said. Actually, he could diffuse the situation by distancing herself from her presence in some way or the other. You could ask Sam Pitroda to do that, but he hasn't done that. Number three.
And this is post facto. Even if, let's say, for example, he was unaware that she was part of it, or he didn't know her antecedents, the team cleared it, and he was not aware of it. Post facto, he could have done this and said that, look, I have nothing to do with her positions, and she did not say anything about Kashmir. So he could have done that if he chose to. Anyway, but Sanjeev Srivastava, I want to look at the larger thing. These last 3 days that Rahul Gandhi has been in the United States, and clearly people were looking, particularly after the 2024 verdict, that look, there might be some signs of change, that Rahul Gandhi may have finally arrived, that he's now going to be taken far more seriously as a politician. Unfortunately, the last 3 days have just been hopping from one controversy to another, whether it was a Sikh controversy. I think the day before that also he said something that was not entirely, covering himself in glory. And then, of course, this whole Ilhan Omar episode. In a sense, the detractors of Rahul Gandhi, BJP or otherwise, they are saying that, look, this is a continuation of what we've always known for the last 10 years, certainly, that he's just not up for it. How do you counter that from what we've seen in the last 3 days?
Good evening, Zaka. I think the 2024 verdict has already countered that to a significant extent. So the party has nearly doubled its tally. The BJP has lost its majority and is now heading a coalition government. So certain issues have been settled by the public. The media may take its own time following that lead. Number one. Number two, if I was in Rahul Gandhi's shoes, I would definitely not be meeting Ilhan Omar. I would not be making that statement about Sikhs, because I would be knowing, if I was Rahul Gandhi, that these are the kind of issues which will be picked up and a narrative would be tried to set up. So all the good things he said, see Zaka, some things are last 10 years, some things have become very clear. If Rahul Gandhi says 10 things, and if in 2 things or 1 thing he puts his foot in his mouth, he cuts a sorry figure, then that becomes the story. If Prime Minister Modi says 10 things, and if he says 1 thing which is not exactly exemplary or correct, then the remaining 9 things remain the story, which we are all familiar with. Still, if I was Rahul Gandhi, I wouldn't have done these 2 things. Fine, fair and simple. I think the public has moved beyond these kind of narratives which BJP and a section of the ecosystem always tries to develop and propagate. That debate has been settled.
Okay.
with the 2024 election result and maybe further settled in the upcoming assembly elections.
Okay, so Pradeep Bhandari, the Congress's view, and of course people who support the Congress party are saying that look, whatever needed to be settled has been settled in the 2024 election. Now you have to take Rahul Gandhi seriously. He's got 99 MPs. He's the leader of the opposition. The India alliance is 234, so on and so forth. How does it really matter what he's saying in the US? What is the political downside? The media will play it for 3 days, the headlines will carry it for 3 days, and then people move on.
Well, it has definitely been settled that for the 3 consecutive elections, the Congress party has been in double digit and the Bharatiya Janata Party has got, is forming the government for the 3rd time. So yes, if the Congress party and the supporters of the Congress party need to be happy to be rejected for 3 consecutive times with the people of India with a similar vote share of 18 to 22%, well and good, the people of India have given their verdict. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister for the 3rd consecutive time, which has happened for the first time in the last 40 years. Now let me see, and what is my larger argument? Will a right-minded patriot speak to an individual who has open anti-India views, who advocates for an independent Jammu and Kashmir? That is my point number 1. Why has Rahul Gandhi not spoken a word about Ilhan Omar's view? What has been discussed between Ilhan Omar and Rahul Gandhi? When 2 heads of state meet, let's imagine the Indian head of state meet and another head of state meet, you always have a press release of what is discussed. What has been discussed between an individual who is an anti-India individual who gets an anti-India resolution, who advocates for an independent Jammu and Kashmir? We do not know about it. This is where our charge is.
But Pradeep, I have a question.
Yes.
No, my question is that Rahul Gandhi went to the US earlier also,
yes,
before 2024.
So yeah.
No. So, and he must have said pretty controversial things like he said in the last 3 days. Yet, for the last 3 days, the media has been covering him blanket. I guess one of the reasons for that is also that the media also realizes that he's not the same Rahul Gandhi from pre-2024.
There are right-minded.
He's now the leader of the opposition. So, for whatever it's worth, they are covering him. The headlines are about him.
Zaka, it is about India. And if a public representative who is right now the leader of opposition advocates and makes anti-India statements and speaks falsehood about Bharat, it is our rightful duty to make the people aware about the ulterior motive in the larger conspiracy. Let me just reread.
I'll
tell you.
He has met with an anti-India.
I'll tell you. The fight is about whether a Sikh is going to be allowed to wear a turban in India, whether a Sikh will be allowed to wear a kada in India or will be able to go to a Gurudwara. Please tell me, whereas in India, the state not advocated or has gone against and banned the Sikhs. The last time the Sikhs felt threatened in India was 1984. What are the charges? Exactly. So what is Mr. Rahul Gandhi trying to do? He's trying to create a narrative of a weak society where a Sikh fights with a Hindu, one caste fights with the other.
One second,
Pradeep,
let me conduct this debate. Sabra Saab, I come back to you again and I'm specifically asking you this question because you are who you are. Do you know any of your fellow, Sikhs who have ever come to you in the last 4 years, 5 years, 10 years and said that, look, we're afraid to go to our Gurudwara, we're afraid to wear our turban or we're afraid to wear our kada? I mean, it's just not just poor articulation, it's just plain wrong what Mr. Gandhi said. And perhaps he even knows that.
See, Zaka, number 1, I would like to make it clear that speaking against Bharatiya Janata Party or speaking against the policies of BJP is not speaking against the nation. Everybody should know that. Number 2, if you are asking about Sikhs and the way Hardeep Puri had jumped yesterday for the press conference and for everything, whatever he said in the media, let me ask BJP and Hardeep Puri also. Why was Hardeep Puri mum when the Punjab Kisans were sitting for 1 year on dharna at Delhi, at the doors of Delhi, at the doors of Parliament? Where was Hardeep Puri when the farmers were called Khalistanis, when they were called terrorists, when they were called Deshdrohis? Where was Hardeep Puri when Kangana Ranaut said the females of these farmers are taking 100 rupees, 200 rupees and they are coming for the agitation? Where was Hardeep Puri when these farmers were questioned by Kangana Ranaut and she termed them as Khalistanis? And where is Hardeep Puri when there are 3 Gurdwaras in the BJP ruled state? One in Haridwar, Gyan Godadi Gurdwara, the other one Dangmar Gurdwara in Sikkim, and the third one is in Puri, Mangumat. These 3 Gurdwaras have been demolished by the BJP governments. Where is Hardeep Puri? Where are the other Sikh leaders of BJP? Why are they not questioning their own government?
Okay,
Why are
Pradeep,
they not
quick
protecting
response,
the
and then
Gurdwaras?
I'll go
These
back
are
to
not simple
the two
Gurdwaras.
other guests.
These are the historic
Okay, Sabra
Gurdwaras of the
Saab,
Sikh
heard you.
history.
We heard you.
Why are they being
Let
demolished?
Pradeep respond.
My
Let Pradeep
learned
respond.
friend from the Congress party is spreading fake news. No Indian government representative or the Prime Minister or the Home Minister has called
not
the
the fake
farmers
news.
as
I have given
Khalistanis.
you
He's
name of
lying.
the Gurdwara
We are the
and I have
individuals
given you
who've
the
given
city
50%
also.
above
Please
cost price
inquire.
to the farmers. He is belittling and trying to trivialize the issue. Sikh for Justice, a banned terror outfit, advocates Rahul Gandhi's view. Sikh for Justice wants an independent Punjab, and he is this is the same body which is advocating Mr. Gandhi's view. It is not about the domestic politics.
Did Kangana Ranaut not call them Khalistanis?
Wait a sec. Zaka, the party has already taken a stand on Kangana Ranaut's issue. Please tell me, what are we discussing? We are discussing that a leader of opposition has advocated views on Sikhs in India, which has been advocated and resonated by a banned terror outfit called Sikh for Justice, who wants an independent Punjab. How is he trying to trivialize this?
Okay, I want to get quick closing comments from Kanwal Sibal and to Sanjeev Srivastava. Kanwal Sibal, particularly when we know that there is a Khalistan leaning elements within the diaspora, whether it's in the US, UK, Canada, etc. And this again is pretty obvious. Mr. Gandhi says what he says. The next day, Pannu latches onto it, saying that, look, we endorse what he's saying. And he's using Rahul Gandhi for his own sort of narrow partisan interests. So shouldn't Mr. Gandhi have known that saying something like this at a time when there are these Khalistani elements within the diaspora in these countries will only be fodder for them?
Of course. Point is that this will now reinforce and boost the narrative of the Khalistanis abroad, in Canada or United States or UK or Australia, that the leader of the opposition himself is saying that the Sikhs are in danger in India because they may be barred from wearing turbans or wearing karas or going to Gurdwara. Now, this gives them very powerful argument, and then it feeds into all the human rights organizations, religious freedom organizations who already are attacking India. It will feed into their narrative. Then it will feed into the press, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Economist, and what have you, Wall Street Journal. Then it will create an impression about India which is highly negative. Where was the need for this? And why just pick up on the Sikh in the audience, suo moto, without provocation? In fact, asks him, what's your name, and this and that, and then goes on to say what he had to say. And then he also added, which you have not mentioned, that this can happen to other religions in India.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
So therefore, this is the kind of thing, as I said, which is very negative in terms of strengthening the very unfavorable impressions about religious freedom in India and the danger to minorities in India. It's very unfortunate.
I have to give Sanjeev Srivastava the final word, but 10 seconds, Sabra Saab, 10 seconds, not more than that. Sanjeev Srivastava, final word, yeah. Quickly.
See, Zaka Gurpatwant Singh Panun, he does not need Rahul Gandhi's view to enhance his views on extremism and Khalistan.
No, but he's done exactly that in 24 hours after what Mr. Gandhi said. He's done exactly that.
His water boundary. No, let me complete. You can't interrupt me in 10 seconds also. Listen, his water boundary is well known. His water boundary cannot stop. The union government has failed to stop his water boundary. They have failed to tackle him, and they are putting the blame on Rahul Gandhi. It is for the government to act, or it is for the opposition leader to act.
Okay, fine. I said 10 seconds. You've taken more than that. Sanjeev Srivastava, final word. Sanjeev Srivastava, final word. You know, whether they like it or not, whether Sabra Saab believes it or not, fact is that's exactly what happened. Mr. Gandhi said what he said 24 hours ago, and within the end of the day, Pannu puts out a statement saying, look, Mr. Gandhi is also saying exactly what I've been saying all along. I mean, surely the Congress party, the learned people in the party, the advisors of Mr. Rahul Gandhi should have forewarned him about this when he said, you know, Sikhs are afraid to go to Gurdwara, wear kada and wear turban in India. Yeah.
So, even in my earlier comment, I clearly stated that if I was Rahul Gandhi, I wouldn't have said it. It was, for lack of a better word, I think it was lack of judgment on his part, lack of presence of mind. He didn't apply his mind. And there is this problem with Rahul Gandhi when he says things off the cuff and which rebound on him and recoil on him. So that is one. This case is one. Second, I agree with the newly appointed spokesperson Bhandari, my dear friend, that what he has said, I agree. Yes, the verdict says that it is the BJP government for the third term and the Congress for the third time in double digits. But the verdict also says that the numbers of BJP have come down and the Congress have gone up, and by substantial measure. And the final thing which I want to really say is that are we, in a manner of speaking, so insecure? If there is a constant India hater, India baiter in the US Congress or Senate, wherever she is,
5 seconds.
If she comes and meets us in a delegation, do we really need such hue and cry? Can't, it's best, okay, if he has not met her, fine. But if you try and meet your opponent, try and put across your viewpoint, at least she would, I don't know what she will be thinking, but if I was her or a normal person, would be little mellowed, little softened by a prominent Indian leader.
5 seconds. Complete wrap up.
Ring a bell.
That's one point.
No, I got to wrap up, Sanjeev. I got to wrap up.
The Honorable LOP's statement is supported by a banned terrorist. That's what I was saying.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm pulling away because we're getting pictures. Prime Minister Modi has gone to the residence of the Chief Justice of India for the Ganpati Puja celebrations there. This is at the residence of Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud. He's reached there. He's performed a puja. You can see the Chief Justice, his wife to the right of the Prime Minister. These are pictures of them welcoming him. Of course, the Chief Justice hails from Maharashtra. So Ganpati is a big, easily the biggest festival for Maharashtrians. And the Prime Minister there also wearing a Maharashtrian topi while he's there performing puja in front of Lord Ganesha. Of course, this is an interesting sight. The fact that the Prime Minister has headed up to the CJI's house and is performing the puja there. I can't think of an instance that's happened, that something like this has happened in the past, but we will get that checked with our research team. So these are the pictures of the Prime Minister performing the Ganesh Puja at the residence of the Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud. So let's now move on to some international stories. In less than 2 months until Election Day on the 5th of November in the United States, Democratic candidate Kamala Harris and her Republican rival Donald Trump engaged in a fiery debate, bashing each other's policy records, their proposals. This was the first and perhaps the only presidential debate in the 2024 race, with a neck-and-neck fight in the polls and several swing states up for grabs. Kamala Harris, by all accounts, was able to put Donald Trump on the defensive over his election conspiracies, what happened on the 6th of January, the riots that happened at Capitol Hill, the immigration narrative, which of course has always been an advantage for the Republican, and even Donald Trump's stand on abortion, which of course was a weak point for him. Kamala Harris exuded confidence. It was a far cry from when Joe Biden debated Trump back in June, when the Republican nominee was accused of rambling and even repeatedly was fact-checked by the moderators, the journalists of ABC News. But will this performance give Kamala Harris a decisive edge, an edge that she can take through to November? Here's a deep dive. In the first and perhaps only presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, the two candidates sparred verbally, often attacking each other in a very personalized manner. Whatever exchanges they had or differences they had over policy were largely overshadowed by their fiery exchanges over character and crowd size. So, who won the debate? Harris or Trump? Let's find out. Political pundits, analysts, and commentators found that Trump had often found himself defensive on issues like abortion, but that was expected. But the bigger problem was that he allowed Harris to bait him on multiple occasions, and then he just veered off message. In one such instance, the vice president belittled the crowds that were attending, or at least the size of the crowds that were attending Trump's rallies. That forced Trump into a meandering ramble, which ended up with his rather bizarre claim, which was really the most hilarious moment of the debate, where Trump said that immigrants were eating up cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio. At another point in the debate, Harris even suggested that American military leaders, including many who have worked with Trump, viewed him as a disgrace. Trump often responded to these smirks, to these jabs, very angrily. He declared that Harris had no policies of her own and that she was the worst vice president in the history of America. After the debate, many Democratic strategists and officials were all cheers for Harris and her performance, declaring her to be the winner.
From the handshake and the fact she came over and she commanded the room and she put Donald Trump on the defense throughout the entire night, I can't imagine it won't move the needle on those polls.
On the other hand, Republicans complained about the tenor of the questions, the balance of the moderators, and also acknowledged that Trump did miss quite a few opportunities to land his punches.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Kamala Harris made a lot of mistakes tonight. But again, I go back to what I said earlier, which is that there was no real substance. If you listen to Kamala Harris talk for 90 minutes, you would hear a person talking as if she weren't the sitting vice president of the United States of America. She is in office now and has been for 3.5 years. It's her policy that caused these problems.
All in all, it seemed like Harris had a better debate night than Trump. Let's start at the beginning. As both candidates walked in, Harris walked across the room to deliver a handshake. Trump was caught a bit off guard. This was, after all, the first handshake in a presidential debate since 2016, which is when Trump first ran for office. It was the first time that Harris had met Trump in person, and it was an awkward handshake which started things off. After a nervous start for about the first 5-odd minutes or so, Kamala Harris stepped up her game. She laid the bait, and Donald Trump took it. It began with her needling Trump that his rallies were boring his rallies, so on and so forth. It continued with her comments that Donald Trump had inherited so many $1 billion from his father and yet filed for bankruptcy 6 times. And it went on as Harris invoked some of Trump's foremost Republican critics, including those who've worked with him, who've served in his administration in the past. At one point in the debate, Harris invited viewers to watch a Trump rally for a more unfiltered view of the former president. She said, and I quote, "You will never hear him talk about your needs." That's the point where she sort of sniggered at him for the rally size, the crowds, the paltry crowds that he was inviting, and of course, also about the fact that they were leaving his rallies halfway through. He responded to it. This was bait. He took it. He responded to it, not by talking about the voters or their needs, but about crowd numbers. Now, this, remember, is a bit of a sore point with Trump. He has in the past accused Harris and her campaign of using AI images to bolster her crowd sizes. He started off and he pushed back by saying, and I quote again, "People don't leave my rallies." And then came what was the funniest and easily the zaniest moment of the debate, where Trump went on to say that immigrants from Haiti are eating pets, dogs and cats in an Ohio city. And that led to a fact check and a pushback from David Meyer, one of the ABC News moderators. On foreign policy, Harris often forced Trump to defend his closeness to authoritarian leaders like Prime Minister Orban of Hungary and his past bromance with President Putin of Russia. She went on to say that Trump, if he became president again, then Putin would eat him for lunch. She also said that if Trump was still president, then Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. Trump, of course, countered that by saying that it was Putin who endorsed Kamala Harris and not him just in the last few days running up to the debate. She also pressed him on the Israel-Hamas war when he pushed back, trying to frame Harris as anti-Israel and anti-Jew and pro-Palestine, saying that she even refused to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, who came to Washington a few months ago. Abortion was one of the biggest missed opportunities for President Joe Biden in the first debate. It was the first debate that knocked off Biden out of the race. But Harris made sure that in this debate, it was one of her strongest moments. Trump, of course, is keenly aware of his vulnerability on a topic like abortion. He, of course, had appointed the Supreme Court justices who helped overturn Roe v. Wade, the long-standing federal judgment which protected women's reproductive rights. Trump clarified, quite defensively, he said that he was not in favor of a national abortion ban and that he would leave it to individual states to decide. Harris responded to that by saying that Trump's position on abortion is an insult to most American women. Kamala Harris warned that world leaders were laughing at Donald Trump and saw him as a disgrace. And when she referred to the 2020 election loss as the moment when Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people, Trump grew visibly angry. Harris repeatedly baited him into going off topic or doubling down on positions which are not particularly Trump's strong suit, positions that are unpopular. She cleared the bar both in terms of telling her own personal story and at the same time going deep enough on policy. Now this is, remember, is a tough balancing act. Most Americans still view Kamala Harris as an unknown commodity, and that was one of the big findings of the recent New York Times poll. When the debate focused on the border or the economy, Trump had the upper hand, but too often he took the bait from Kamala Harris and he gave her a pass instead. While the vice president clearly got under Trump's skin, she offered little beyond platitudes. There was not a definitive defense of her and Biden's track record over the last 4 years, whether it's on immigration or on the economy. But then Trump did not put Harris on the mat either. Harris played the long game in the debate tonight. She let the former president take the bait on some of his close relationships with dictators like Orban, Kim Jong-un, and Putin. But the most memed line of the debate, and perhaps what will be remembered most in this debate, were the conspiracies around immigrants eating dogs and cats in American cities. Trump will find that one hard to live down. All right, joining us now is Mr. Richard Painter. He's an American lawyer, independent political analyst. Thank you very much, Mr. Painter. I'm sure you, like millions around the world, watched the debate very closely. The consensus view seems to be, or at least a large number of people seem to think, that Kamala Harris had the superior debate night compared to Donald Trump. But what we're interested in is, A, what's your view on who you thought won the debate? And what sort of bearing will that have, the debate performance, on the race itself?
Well, Donald Trump had some of the same problems that Joe Biden had, being coherent, and President Biden's debate performance was quite poor over the summer, which is what led him to withdraw from the race. But one thing people did not notice is that Donald Trump has deteriorated substantially, and we saw that last night, on top of the fact that he just can't even recognize basic facts. I mean, he did lose the 2020 election. But we don't argue in the United States about who won the Super Bowl last year or who won the 2020 election. This is the 2024 election. And if you can't even figure out what happened in 2020 4 years ago and wants to just say something that's just completely not true, nobody's going to believe him on anything else. And you have that and other problems, and he was rambling. It's really unfortunate. The Republican Party would be well advised to do what the Democrats did and substitute another candidate. But it's very, very late in the game now, and they've already nominated him. And so it sounds like the Republicans are stuck with him through November, but it's not gonna be good in November.
So we have less than 2 months for the election. The question, though, is coming into this debate, when we had the initial announcement of Kamala Harris and the weeks after that, she seemed to sort of really energized both the Democratic base. You managed to get the support of the delegates very quickly. She had an initial bump in the polls, and then that sort of tapered off. Coming into this debate, I think the New York Times poll had put her behind Trump nationally. You think she's done enough on debate night with her performance to sort of turn the polls again into her favor?
Well, we'll see where the polls go on this. She's a very impressive debater. I think far superior to Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden in the first in the 2020 debates. She's been one of the best debaters there. Barack Obama was a good debater as well. But she's a trained prosecutor. She's tried cases in front of juries, and she certainly used that experience very, very well. Now, a good debater does not necessarily translate into a good president, but she certainly made the case for herself very, very effectively. And once again, she's not up against opposition that's serious. I mean, Donald Trump didn't have anything serious to say last night. He just was rambling on and on about how if he'd only been in the White House, there'd be no wars in America, and we'd all be filthy rich and everything else. And there's just simply no substance there.
I do want to ask you, one of the things that she seemed to, and this is a point that the Republicans have been sort of making over and over again about the immigration crisis. And And somehow, of course, Trump was not able to put her on the mat on that issue when it came to the debate. But if they were to keep hammering on this message, do you reckon that this will find some takers, that this will have resonance, and how much resonance may this have in the states that actually really matter, the half a dozen states, the swing states or the battleground states, which eventually decide this election?
We've had arguments about immigration in the United States for well over 100 years, and we certainly have a very, very challenging situation at the southern border. But we had this problem under President Obama, we had it under President Trump, we've had it under President Biden. And we need the president and Congress to work together toward immigration reform. So people here illegally are allowed to be here, but illegal people are removed. And we need to protect our borders. But the problem is Donald Trump is bringing rhetoric into the debate that's simply unnecessary. There have been a lot of racist reference to immigrants. And there's some white supremacist groups that he's refused to denounce. And indeed, his race baiting of Kamala Harris herself. I mean, she is of a parentage from India and also from the Dominican Republic. And say, well, are you black or are you not? I mean, we're not interested in that in the United States. We're a country of immigrants. We come from all over the world. And this race baiting rhetoric that we had during the Trump administration is just going to make the immigration problem harder to solve. So I just don't think that voters want to go back there.
All right, Mr. Painter, my final question. So clearly, especially after last night's debate performance, Kamala Harris seems to be the favorite to win in November. Do you see anything changing that in the next 2 months? I mean, let's not forget, eight years ago, Hillary Clinton looked to shoo in from the presidency, but she lost.
Well, a lot of Americans had a lot of reservations about Hillary Clinton, and so did I. I mean, I ended up supporting her because I thought that Donald Trump would be far worse. But Hillary Clinton had a track record of some ethics problems that she created for herself, and then the problems from the Clinton administration that really would have made it easy for any Republican but Donald Trump, I think, to beat her quite soundly. And I was quite amazed that Donald Trump was able to do that. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, is an experienced prosecutor with a really very clean record in the ethics arena, which is where I've done most of my work. You can always try and find a scandal somewhere in someone's background. I guess you can always try that. But I think she's coming into this, Kamala Harris, with a lot more favorable image with the American people, with average middle-class voters, than Hillary Clinton had.
And very quickly, the way the Republicans have painted her as an extreme left, extreme progressive candidate, you don't find that deterring in any way for her to win, at least the important, what they call the Rust Belt states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, where it's almost neck and neck in most of those, particularly in Pennsylvania, it's almost a dead heat.
Well, I mean, I'm more conservative than she is, but I work for the Bush administration, after all, and she's not a far left radical. I mean, she made it very clear last night that, for example, Hamas committed a terrorist attack against Israel. She's not with these crazies who are at our college campuses somehow trying to justify or excuse what Hamas did and are calling for the abolition of Israel. She has not aligned herself with the far left. She was a more traditional prosecutor in San Francisco. After she left the prosecutor's office in San Francisco, we got some left-wingers in there who took her place, who I think stopped prosecuting crimes, and that was a problem. So, yeah, we do have an extreme left in America, but it's not very influential in the Democratic Party. They make more noise on the college campuses than anywhere else. And calling Kamala Harris a leftist is not really accurate. No, she's not as conservative as I would like, but I see that Vice President Richard Cheney has endorsed Kamala Harris, and I don't think he agrees with her on a lot of issues either, but he recognizes the serious threat to the United States posed by Donald Trump.
All right, Richard Painter, thank you very much for joining us, a lawyer, political analyst, and of course, former ethics lawyer with the White House in the Bush presidency. Thank you very much for joining us. If you're tuned in, it's going to be a fascinating race between now and November. Like I said, less than 2 months. Yes, Kamala Harris had a phenomenal debate night by most people's reckoning. She was the one who won the debate night. But whether or not she can carry through this momentum up until Election Day and win on Election Day on the 5th of November. That is something that we will closely track virtually on a daily basis here on CNN News 18. Thank you for your time. Good night.
Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can write books, with nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy, look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists, they have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries, like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down.
Climate change is on our doorstep. It's time for a revolution to take root. And it starts with 1.4 billion Indians. It starts with one tree for humanity, one tree for Mother Earth, one tree for our future. Project One Tree, a News 18 network initiative.
Presented by...
Excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in they used it to try and win an election.
President
They're fake cases. First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people
I'm taking it from the city manager.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post, and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. The big debate is done. Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. What did they talk about? Who won the debate?